Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic, and if this is your first time, you're watching The Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I've got another list video for you all. With 2023 nearing its end, I've become a little bit reflective, and today I'd like to share my top 10 Marvel Omnibuses of 2023. To be clear, these might not have all come out in 2023, but that is when I purchased them, started reading them, read them, what have you, and so that's how they made the list, and I can't wait to share it all today. Before we dive in though, I just want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're interested in getting your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website in the description for this video. If you find something you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to receive $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's list. Okay, first up on our list in no particular order, we have Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, Omnibus Volume 1. This for me was an eagerly anticipated omnibus reprint over on the Marvel side of the fence. After just absolutely falling in love with his Fantastic Four run last year, enjoying his X-Men stuff, this year I know I even read Secret Warriors, thoroughly enjoyed all of these books, but I knew that their Avengers run was one of his just best contributions to Marvel Comics. I really loved his Secret Wars event, which I understand is the culmination of his run on Avengers here, so I couldn't wait to dive into this run proper, and so far, I just have been having an amazing ride. This omnibus is so well mapped. I really enjoy how they kind of have all the issues together. I know that this is one of a 2-volume set for that Avengers by Hickman era, or the Hickvengers. As you can see, the art in this is absolutely beautiful as well, and it's really consistent throughout. All of the artists on this book are just absolutely full steam ahead amazing. The coloring on these books are also fantastic. The formatting, if you have like the Fantastic Four omnibuses or even the Secret Warriors omnibus, Hickman has these omnibuses really formatted a certain way where we don't really have the covers reproduced proper in the front. We have some nice kind of sections or storyline kind of break pages. We have usually a white omnibus. It's just really fascinating. There's definitely some visual continuity between this and the Fantastic Four omnibus as far as how it's formatted and laid out, which as a collector, I really appreciate. Now, I do prefer covers up front, but it's still great to have them all collected in the back, and it's really cool to just be immersed in the storytelling experience. Like Fantastic Four, the scope of what Hickman tries to achieve with this Avengers run is just absolutely gigantic and just masterfully done. It's really a brilliant run from what I've read so far. I really have enjoyed it. It's definitely a standout for me for 2023. Again, so eagerly anticipated, and what I've read so far has just not disappointed. I had to include it on my Marvel Omnibus list for this year, and as I'm flipping through, I'm just remembering some of my favorite early moments here. Next up on my top Marvel Omnibus list for 2023, New X-Men by Grant Morrison. This was another run I had always wanted to read, especially in this omnibus format. When I heard Marvel was reprinting, I knew I had to snag a copy. It was almost an immediate pre-order for me. I really love Joss Whedon and John Cassaday's run on Astonishing X-Men, which takes place pretty much directly after this run by Grant Morrison, and I always wanted to read the run that predated it. I am a big Grant Morrison fan overall, and I've heard so many just prolific things about what this author did with this title. I know that Morrison has long been credited with kind of reviving the X-Men, making them cool again, making them interesting again, and honestly, reading this book, I have to agree with that sentiment. I think absolutely Morrison adds a kind of stylishness to this book. It has this kind of punk alternative feel to it, and being the X-Men, being these kind of outcasted, othered characters, I think having that kind of progressive underground vibe just oozing from these pages, it really just served the vision of what Morrison seemed to try to communicate in this run. I absolutely loved it. This run is really different than any X-Men run I've read before or since, but I'm now so happy to say I finally read this. I did give this omnibus a review on my channel not too long ago, but wow, I couldn't even do it justice. There's simply so much just meat on the bone with this run. I absolutely adored the artwork from Frank Quitely and all the other artists that contributed to this omnibus. So many unique styles that feel like out of time. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just so interesting and just visually stimulating, and it just really served the storytelling purpose. We have Morrison be pretty grounded in the storytelling. Every so often we go completely into these like other realms of storytelling, which I actually think serve, again, the X-Men franchise so well. Morrison is just in top form here, and I really enjoyed the ride. This was an absolute great pickup for this year, and one of my favorite Marvel omnibuses of the year, no question. Okay, moving right along, we have the X-23 Omnibus Volume 1. This is another one that I was looking forward to when I heard it announced. My history with the character of X-23, Laura Kinney, has been a bit varied. I read some of her earliest miniseries, not the NYX original origin of this character, which is also not included in this omnibus, but some of these early 6-issue miniseries that are included in this book. I had read them years and years ago, borrowed them from a friend, really enjoyed them, and I heard that they were coming out with this omnibus that included some of these miniseries that I hadn't read in so long, along with some of her original solo series, a couple one-shots, things like that, and I couldn't wait. And one of the reasons I couldn't wait is not only remembering how much I enjoyed some of those early miniseries, but how much I then went on to love the character of Laura Kinney in that run on the all-new Wolverine by Tom Taylor. I absolutely loved that omnibus, loved that run, and I just wanted to know more about this character after reading that. So when this omnibus was announced, it was just a no-brainer. I'm a huge fan of Wolverine, whether it's Logan or Laura Kinney here, and frankly, having a chance to revisit this character at an earlier time that I had not really read as extensively, it's just been a real blast to make my way through this volume. I do think that overall, this omnibus is really well put together. I will say I would have loved to read her actual first appearance, and I believe the comic was called NYX, but her origin is kind of complicated and borderline problematic, so I understand why Marvel didn't include that in this book, but what we get is still really fantastic. We still get origin stories told here in those miniseries, and it's just really a welcome treat from Marvel. I hope we see a Volume 2 before too long, but definitely on my list of favorites in 2023. And hey, if you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I just would like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing list videos, comic book reviews, unboxings, tours, things like that. Anyway, would love to have you. Thanks for considering. Now let's keep this list going. Next on our list of favorite Marvel omnibuses this year, I have to put on Fantastic Four by Mark Millar and Bryan Hitch. This omnibus was such a surprise for me, and it was such a welcome addition to the collection. For those that maybe have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I've become a massive Fantastic Four fan in recent years, between reading that Jonathan Hickman run last year and also diving back into the classic run from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Anyway, I'm becoming a pretty rabid fan for this franchise. I love the Fantastic Four, and this is a run I've always wanted to finish. So one of my earliest trade paperbacks for Fantastic Four was actually the first handful of issues from Millar and Hitch, and I remember just loving the storyline. I think it was called The World's Greatest or something. Anyway, I just remember loving it once upon a time, and when I heard this was solicited, I knew I wanted to pick up a copy. Being a fan of this creative team from works like The Ultimates, I just knew that they were an all-star duo, and I again remembered liking those first few issues. Now, it had been over a decade since I read them, so I forgot most of the storyline, so I basically read these early issues totally fresh. There were a couple moments where I was like, oh yeah, this looks vaguely familiar, but frankly, it was even better than I had remembered. And to get to read their entire run proper, along with some kind of bonus supplementary mini-series and things like that, this omnibus just really packs a punch. It's really breezy, you can read it cover to cover fairly swiftly, but I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Unlike Hickman that had one master epically scoped storyline that everything kind of served for the most part, this I would say has a collection of loosely interconnected but pretty solitary episodic story arcs. I think we have maybe 4 or 5 big story arcs across this omnibus, but I really like that. We felt like we had these great little standalone adventures and we just move on to the next one after that. Characters were all really well defined as far as I was concerned, and the art from Hitch is just absolutely spellbinding. Again, kind of cinematic in scope and wonderful. I love all the extras we got included in this. I think even just the Marvel, I think 1985 is what it was called? 84, 85? Anyway, that feels kind of like a random insertion, but it was such a welcome addition for me with this collection. It just kept on giving. Loved this book. Next on my list of top Marvel omnibuses for 2023, I have to give it up for Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue DeConnick. This omnibus was such a welcome surprise for me. I'll be honest, I heard a lot of controversial things about this run and even this comic creator, but I had never read her work before. I had never really read a lot of Captain Marvel, much at all. I'd see her appearances in different issues here and there, but this was my first time reading a solo Captain Marvel series, so I went in fairly blank slate. And I have to say, I really love what I found. I think that there was so much kind of politicization of this run that I had all these preconceived notions before I even got to this book, but I really tried to leave everything at the door and just to read it for myself, fresh, and just see what I got out of it. And frankly, I just saw a lot of really strong female characters. I didn't see anything with just some kind of crazy agendas. I didn't see so much of just the garbage I heard about this run. I just didn't see evidence of myself, and I just had a real blast here. We have a really great collection of artists that also just visually told all of these wonderful stories in this book, but we had Kelly Sue DeConnick's just unique vocal vision throughout it, and I just really, really dug it. I know some people say that the character shifted so much when Carol Danvers actually got this Captain Marvel moniker. I can't speak to that as much. I think that maybe could be a valid criticism if you're a longer term fan of Carol Danvers, but again, coming from someone like me who was fairly blank slate, I got to let this run kind of define this character for me, and again, I really liked what I read. And in fact, it so turned me around with this character that I went out and pursued the Kelly Thompson Captain Marvel Omnibus, and I'm still reading that, and I'm really enjoying that as well. This was, again, such a wonderful surprise to me. I had a hard time putting this down. I just enjoyed it that much. And I feel like people aren't as vocal about this omnibus in positive ways, so let me be one of them. I thoroughly enjoyed this run. I think DeConnick had a lot to say, and I was on board. I just thought it was such a great reading experience and one of my favorites of 2023. Okay, next for me, I'm going to go with Thor by Jason Aaron Omnibus Volume 1. Now, admittedly, this is a later addition to my collection. I just picked this up, I believe, last month in November, and I'm still making my way through it. But being, 15 or 20 issues in already, I absolutely am floored at the quality of this run. I recently read the Thor by Matt Fraction Omnibus, enjoyed that so much, I thought I'd go ahead and start a new run. I am a big Jason Aaron fan, especially with his stuff at Marvel, and I knew I had to give this a shot, and wow, I am just spellbound. It's absolutely incredible. The art from a couple amazing artists, including Asad Ribic, is just breathtaking. It really just screams fantastical, larger-than-life storytelling. There is kind of a magical, surreal quality to how a lot of the artists just depict these characters and places. Ribic in particular has this kind of dreamy pastel look that, again, it feels mythic and interesting and kind of surreal, and all of that, I think, serves the vision when I think of Thor comics just so well. I also really enjoyed reading the story of Gore in those first couple story arcs, a really tremendous Marvel villain, and anyway, this is just really making me care about Thor and the characters in the Thor universe in a new way. I think Jason Aaron is in true fighting form as far as how he grippingly writes this character in this world. Again, I'm just absolutely glued to it. This is one of my nightly reads recently, and I just like it so much, I had to include it in the 2023 video. Again, it's a newer book for me, so I'm still making my way through, hoping to get volume 2 sometime soon as well. I know that this run is broken up across a 2-volume set. And hey, if you're a Thor fan or if you've read a pretty extensive amount of Thor, I'm looking for recommendations. After Matt Fraction, after Jason Aaron, what are some of your favorite Thor runs? I've read some of Walter Simonson's as well and have really liked his run, but maybe are there others out there? I've heard JMS has a fairly okay run. I've heard things about Donny Cates, but I'd love to hear from actual readers in the comments. Let me know if Thor's your character and where I should go next. Alrighty, and keeping this list moving, one of my all-time favorite Marvel omnibuses of this year has to go to Silver Surfer by Dan Slott, Mike Allred, and Laura Allred. This omnibus has their entire run, and for my money, it's one of my favorite one-and-done, standalone comic book omnibuses of all time, and for me, it's easily on my favorite 2023 list. The artwork is absolutely incredible from the Allreds. We have Mike Allred penciling, of course, and then we have Laura providing the colors. And This team is just wonderful. I've seen their creative work over and over again, and it just never gets old for me. I know I even recently reviewed the iZombie Omnibus that has their artwork as well. Anyway, they just always turn in incredible work, and this is some of my favorite I've ever seen the Allreds on. I think turning them loose on this kind of galactic spanning character, this in these surreal spaces and planets and environments, it just lets them go full on into all this creative freedom, and I really love seeing the visual storytelling, all the aliens and alien landscapes and science fiction tropes, devices, technologies. It was just really great seeing the art realizing that so effectively. And I think for Dan Slott, I'm a big fan of Dan Slott as well. I know he's a controversial writer, whatever. I've really enjoyed almost everything I've read from him personally, and this is really a softer touch for him that I have not really seen before, and I am here for the ride. Ultimately, this boils down to a real just love story, and I really love seeing Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer, in this new light. I think that it was such a beautiful story. Like I said, it has a really good one-and-done feel to it. You have a really good beginning, middle, and end, and by the end, you feel like you have a good payoff and resolution to the storytelling, the narrative here, but along the way, there's just so much beauty in the journey. This is a book for comic book fans, superhero genre fans, but even for people that are maybe looking to break into a comic and don't really like some of the traditional superhero books. Give them Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and the Allreds. You won't regret it. It's a wonderful story and easily one of my favorite omnibus editions of all time. Next on my list of favorite Marvel omnibuses this year, and honestly, this pick even surprised me, but I have to give it up for the Gwenpool Omnibus. I didn't know what to think of this character or this book when I first got my copy. All I knew, I was interested with the concept of Gwenpool. I was kind of fascinated by the phenomenon of this character. I saw her introduction in the pages of Howard the Duck, wanted to know about the character, and I saw this omnibus, and I'm so happy I was able to read it. Honestly, the artwork throughout it is absolutely gorgeous and lush. It kind of has an anime or manga quality to the artwork throughout it. I don't really know how best to describe it other than that, but it's really, really beautiful. I think the coloring is all really modern and interesting. There's a kind of polish to this book that really sets it apart. And overall, the tone is just fascinating. This is a heavily comedic book, but there is some intense moments of character drama and a surprising amount of heart. I think it would be easy to reduce this character to kind of a gimmick, but really you'd lose out on a really wonderful piece of character-driven storytelling throughout this main run. In addition to that main, I believe, unbelievable Gwenpool run, we also have her appearances, and again, Howard the Duck, a couple other one-shots and specials. We have the full 10-issue West Coast Avengers run with Gwenpool, which, although not my favorite part of this omnibus, was still really, really fun. This book is just absolutely packed out. You get such a full reading experience from it. It was a great modern omnibus, and it just frankly surprised me. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. I was surprised how effective it was, how much I enjoyed the character, and just how much I adored this art style. Love to see more from this artist in mainstream comics, especially in Marvel. But right now, I just have to say, this was a great book. This was easily a standout reading experience for me when I think about Marvel omnibuses this year. I feel like more people should be talking about it, frankly, because there's really a lot here to just unpack and go into. I do think that this hits different demographics than a lot of the other Marvel books, but for me, I'm so happy I gave it a shot. What a fun read, really well made, well mapped, a really fun reading experience. Okay, next up on my favorite Marvel Omnibus list, we have Superior Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1 from Dan Slott. And wow, what a ride so far. This is another book I'm actually still making my way through, but wow, I'm really, really loving it so far. This is another one that I've always wanted to read. It has that entire, just initial Superior Spider-Man run from Dan Slott, sandwiched somewhere in the middle of his run, I believe. But again, I love the essential concept of this, where basically Doc Ock is in Spider-Man's body, and he's trying to become what he believes is the Superior Spider-Man. It really has a more edgy quality, with Doc Ock kind of taking the reins of Spider-Man. I think it's a really creative concept, but I think admittedly it can sound extremely gimmicky as well, and I think there's so many reasons why on paper this probably should have failed, and yet it's brilliant. So far, I'm loving it. I think, yes, we get to know the character of Otto Octavius so much more through this experience with him as the Superior Spider-Man, but somehow we also still get to learn so much about Peter Parker and what makes Spider-Man so good as a hero. Really like the use of the supporting cast of characters in this as well. I think the art throughout it is very strong, and this is, again, a dream omnibus that I'm so happy to have in my collection. I was hoping to even get the paperbacks once upon a time. They were already out of print, the hardcovers too, and I couldn't really find them for an affordable price, and so I was just waiting for a reprint, some kind of edition, but to see it all in an omnibus, this is just a dream, and frankly, it delivers. I'm really loving going through it so far. I love where this omnibus starts, the kind of origin and setup for the Superior Spider-Man arc. It's really, really intense. You absolutely get out of the gate just at a full sprint. It's beautifully done. It's really hard when you read the first couple issues of this omnibus not to be just completely glued. It's really, really that good. I think that this is one of the best modern Spider-Man runs I've had the chance to read so far, and frankly, it's everything I heard about it and more. Really, really loving it. Easily on my list. And finally, the last pick for my top 10 Marvel Omnibuses of 2023, I have to go with Spider-Man 2099 Omnibus by Peter David. This is another series that I've always wanted to read in its entirety. The editions, the paperbacks are long since out of print. I did have the first volume that had the first, 8 to 10 issues of the run, and I had it ripped up, and I had like an old library copy or something, and I still cherished it. I love the stories. I wanted to get back in this world. I wanted to read this run, and when I heard about this omnibus, man, I had this thing ordered probably a year in advance, and to finally have it this year, it was just a dream. It's perfectly put together. It's a gigantic book, and I am loving every minute of it. To see this artwork blown up to oversized proportions, it's just brilliant, and Peter David is a master at this craft, and I love seeing him just unleashed on this new kind of Spider-Man alternative character. I know this run came out in, I believe, the 90s, but wow, it still feels so fresh today in ways that it's hard to describe. It's so easy to just get caught up in the storytelling, and I love this dystopian future vision of what a Spider-Man could be. I love that costume, that blue and red kind of skull costume. It's just really iconic. I know so many people are probably flooding to this run after enjoying the movie Across the Spider-Verse. I know that probably garnered a lot more fans of this franchise, of this character, and I'm so happy to see that. I know myself to really rediscover this character and read more of them than ever before. I'm just really elated for the opportunity. Again, this omnibus is beautifully made. I've had no issues with mine. I really just dig it. Admittedly, I am a huge Spider-Man fan, and in recent years I've discovered just what a genius Peter David is, and this is so far one of my favorite runs I've been able to read from him. And again, I'm still making my way through, but every issue I'm reading, I'm enjoying this character maybe a little bit more and more. Love this book. I can't wait. When I finally finish it, I'll definitely try to review it on the channel. But wow, this was a great omnibus. What a great year for omnis. Alrighty, and that's about going to wrap up my list of top 10 Marvel Omnibus Editions for 2023. Again, these might not be omnis that were released this year, but these are omnis I got this year, read this year, what have you. That's how they made my list. I'm sure I missed out on a ton. I know there's omnibuses out there, particularly from Marvel, I wasn't able to afford this year, but I'm so happy with what I did get. But let me know, what are some of your favorite picks from Marvel Omnibuses this year? What are some of your highlight reels? Let me know in the comments. Do I have any glaring omissions? Do you have any here that I've read that you agree with, don't agree with? Just let me know what you think in general. I'd love to hear some of your favorite picks in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, maybe share it with a friend, or check out one of my other videos. Until next time, have a good one.